Yeah. Yeah, he's there.
Okay.
Jim, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Okay, all right. Turn up the volume. That's a long delay.
Yeah,
Okay,
gotta make it over the ocean.
we are live and recording, so good to go. Eric, what are you doing?
Okay, so let's call to order. I think I hit it before, right? Yep. Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. We'll start off with the native lands acknowledgement. COCC would like to acknowledge that the beautiful land our campuses reside on are the original homelands of the Wasco and the Warm Springs people. They ceded this land to the U.S. government in the Treaty of 1855. The Paiute people were forcibly moved to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation starting 1879. It is also important to note that the Klamath Trail ran north through this region to the Great Celilo Falls Trading Grounds. Descendants of these original people are thriving members of our community today. We acknowledge and thank the original stewards of this land. Okay. Next up on the agenda, we have a roll call.
Erica Scapel,
Here.
Jim Porter,
Present.
next Jim, Laura Kreska Cooper,
Here.
Daryl Krenowitz.
Yes.
Aaron Murs,
Here.
Aaron Foot Morgan. Maybe joining us
She
later.
she will not be joining.
No, okay.
Yes.
Alan Unser,
Here.
Greg Pereira, here. Michael Lalonde, here. Alicia Moore, here. Anne Marie Hamlin,
Here.
Zach Boone,
Yes.
Laura Bomey,
Here.
Kathleen Knudsen,
Here.
Heather McMeekin,
Here. I'm here.
Paul Taylor, here. Carl Matthews, here. Tony Russell, here. Cindy Lenhart,
Here.
and then Eric Magnus, here. And Sarah Nissen, there. Did I miss anybody? No, I think we're good to go.
Okay. So next up on the agenda, we have any agenda changes? Is there anything anybody would like to submit? Nope.
When we get to committee updates, I don't think we really need a policy review committee update because we are meeting tomorrow. We haven't had a meeting since the January meeting, so we can take that off.
Let's take it off. So we'll remove the policy, what, 2B under Board of Directors Operations Policy Review Committee?
Yep.
Okay.
With Aaron's absence, do we want an advocacy committee update?
We can wait on that one too. I think that's
I
fair.
think that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's Board of Directors Operations 2A. So we will not have any committee updates today.
So we can just delete two.
All right.
Anything else? Okay, moving on. So now we'll be in public comment. Yes, I believe you have something to read.
We do, yes. The following presentation is pursuant of Article 2.3 of the Faculty Forum's Collective Bargaining Agreement, which states the forum president may submit items for board meeting agenda, provided that a written request along with any background materials is filed with the college president in accordance with current board deadlines. This presentation is not subject to the usual time, so you don't have to hurry. You have. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vice Chair.
Thank you. As many of you know, I'm Sarah Henson. I'm the current faculty forum president. I am a faculty member in human development. And I wanted to be able to share with you some of the documents that are informing the platform that I shared with you last month, which is reclaiming faculty value, voice, and worth. I shared a little bit of this, I think at the December board meeting, where I gave you some of the data that we were looking at. And I just wanted to give you more of that information. This is a presentation that we actually made to the administrative negotiating team. So you know, this is the administrative team has a copy of this as well. And so I actually brought my colleague and friend Eric Magidson, who did a lot of the work to collect this data and look at it to explain it. And so I hope this gives you a sense of context of why the faculty are asking and making the proposals that we're asking, where we're coming from, what our concerns are. And I want to assure you, as I have that this is coming from a place of faculty who care deeply about the college, who care deeply about the sustainability, providing high quality, excellent instruction to our students, and to be able to maintain and grow the service that we provide to our community, right? This is not coming from a place of faculty merely wanting more money, but that it really is about the long-term sustainability and the ability to address the mission of the college. So with that, I want to introduce you to my colleague, Eric Magidson. Eric is a faculty member in CIS. He exemplifies what we mean when we talk about excellence in instruction. Eric, I've known since 2010. He is deeply dedicated to his students, to making sure that they leave his classes with skills that they can put to use in the workplace. He is an example of someone with incredibly valuable skills who chooses to be here, who chooses to provide his students with the best of education, while also providing service to the community and to the campus. He served on numerous committees. He has worked with nonprofits in the community to help them with cybersecurity testing. He's innovative. He's created programs in cybersecurity. He's on the cutting edge of teaching our students about AI and valuable skills related to that. And so he really comes to you today from this place of caring deeply about the college and our future. So I won't talk anymore. I'll pass it over to Eric.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Magidson, as Sarah said. I think it's important to start with, I am a graduate of Central Oregon Community College. I graduated 26 years ago. How I ended up here is, and I get a little emotional about this, we have a faculty member who is retiring this year, who gave me the opportunity while I was still learning to stand in front of a classroom and teach some things that I knew. And fast forward, I've been here now 19 years, and he's to blame. So, and I let him know that every day. I want to start by saying, I was honored last year with the Bart Query Lifetime Achievement Award in teaching. And I accepted that not just for me, but especially for Preston Morris, who is our department's administrative assistant, because although we teach, we can't do it without the support staff that we have that's available to us to make what happens in the classroom run smoothly. And that includes getting with her 5 minutes before I was heading to the campus to say, could you print this out? So would you mind handing that back?
Sure.
Sure.
Just pass it around.
Sure. Yeah.
This is an addition.
Oh, great.
In the-
Oh, super.
think you can pass.
This is the same thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
There's just a one- It's just a one sheeter. It's something that's not in the packet. Yeah.
So as Sarah said, I'm gonna share with you a presentation that I shared with the faculty and the negotiations team earlier this month. It's the same data, but I want to present it a different way. I'm gonna challenge you to look at this data through the lens of, is the data I'm sharing with you evident? And does it help to meet our college's mission, to live our college's values, and to exceed, because I can't just say accept, our strategic plan. So what you're looking at here is we did an extensive survey of faculty prior to negotiations to find out what was important to them, to find out some lifestyle things, etc. And what we found right off the bat was that, as you can see, the majority of faculty felt that current salaries are either not at all or partially adequate for living in Bend, Oregon. And to that, we also asked questions about what are faculty doing to make up that difference. And as you can see, 44% of faculty work a second job outside of COCC. 48% teach summer, 39% take overload. 25% actively sought a second job, and 29% have household members working a second job that they wouldn't have to work if our salaries were commensurate. And as you can see, only 11% report no financial strain, and in doing a little backup questionnaire on that, most of those are two-income households. As we negotiate traditionally and through history, this is my first time on negotiations. Of course, for some reason, I became the data nerd for the group, which is fine. And normally there's this comparative college. And so what I understand is last time when we negotiated, Lynn Benton became the comparative college. And what you're seeing on your screen here is number one, the gross salaries. This is someone who started in their first year in 2015 and would have worked through, still working in 2025. What you're seeing here is what salary they made and the differentials between Lynn Benton and Mount Hood. So this is what a faculty member that started in 2015, working today, would have made. And as I said, the differences. And what I wanted to bring home for you all and personalize is down here in this lower table. This is what I would have made working at Mount Hood, Lynn Benton, and what I did make at COCC. Yes.
Can you describe the numbers in the box there, the 838, and then why you chose Mount Hood and Lynbet? And you mentioned Lynbet and why you chose Mount Hood.
Right, so you're getting ahead of the script, which I appreciate. But what you're seeing in the box up above is gross salary for the years that you're seeing here, 25 through 25, 26, 15 through 16.
And why you chose Mount Hood?
I'll
You're getting there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll get there,
Thanks.
I promise.
Okay.
And then when we look at, so faculty is not only compensated by our base salaries, but also by compensation for working overload. So that's working over the 45 contracted load units. We are limited to 8 load units above that. So think of that as overtime. And then a lot of us, like me, work in the summer. So I came from private industry before I came here. I knew I was taking a pay cut. I knew I was going to have to work every summer in order to have the lifestyle and make investments for my future, which I chose to do. What you're seeing here is on the left is overload, and we're looking at 8 units of overload for faculty by gross salary, okay? And as you can see, for overload, COCC faculty is actually paid on a very unique scale. We're paid $750 for so many load units, and then $560 for so many after. And that is flat, whether you're here year 1, year 5, or year 10. What you're seeing is a comparative to current contract, 25-26, contracted salaries for Lynn Benton and Mount Hood, and their compensation for the same work. So then when we go over to summer, as you can see, we're here. Our summer scale is based on our adjunct faculty scale. So depending on where you are in years, this is what someone in year 1, year 5, and year 10, and then what they would make at Mount Hood and Lynn Benton for the same work. What you see down at the bottom here is this year, just in overload, I will teach 4.5 overload, which actually is way under what I normally do, and 13.5 in the summer. So I'm going to gross 17.5 at COCC, and I would have made 33,083 at Mount Hood for the same amount of work given my years at the college. Now, I apologize for how busy this slide is. As we look at salaries, gross salaries do not tell a comparative story. What tells a comparative story is when we take those gross salaries from colleges and we apply the localized cost of living index. So what you'll see in the upper left is normally Lynn Benton has been used as a comparator, but as you can see, their cost of living is 98.2. That actually puts their cost of living index under the national average. What that means is their salary in their area is actually worth more than what they earn. Okay, and then we can see, so what I've done is I've said, instead of Lynn Benton, we really ought to find a comparative college that has an equal cost of living index, and the closest one is Mount Hood. So as you can see, we're 127. Mount Hood is 127.7. Since I'm a data nerd, this is data collected from bestplaces.net. I've also used extensively the living wage calculator from MIT for all of these regions, as well as the EPI resource budget calculator to get a mix. what you'll see here is once we take those salaries, this is 25-26 scale. And we adjust those, step one is worth 48 in livable wages here. Compared to if we look at Mount Hood, there, right there, Lynn Benton, of course, is right there. You can look at the other colleges and see some of these, anything below 100% means that their salaries are worth more. Now, in doing this data analysis, I learned something very key, which is cost of living indexes do not include housing. They include rent, not home purchase. So I wanted to introduce you to our comparator colleges as it pertains to housing prices since 2016. And as you'll see, between 2016 and 2021, you see, steady growth in Multnomah County, in Lynn County, and in Deschutes County. And then in 2021, 2022, when the 30-year price index for home loans, interest rates went up, normally what happens within the real estate market is houses go down to compensate for the increase in interest paid. What you'll notice here is that happened as expected at Multnomah. At Lynn, it actually just flattened out. But here in Deschutes County, and this is not just Bend, this is Deschutes County, our housing prices continue to rise. We are just now seeing an adjustment. So when we take this impact of these salaries and we look at how it's impacting faculty, how it's impacting the college, when I started, the chart that you see here on the right was very different. The majority of faculty had been here 10 plus years, 20, 30 years. And now 45% of our faculty have been here less than 25 years. Less than 5 years. 65% less than 10. And as you look at the small number on the right there at 25 plus years, keep in mind that we are expecting 16% of our current faculty to retire within the next 3 years. So the impact on the college, when we look at all of these risks, is what the college is losing from this impact. And so I just want to apply that a little bit and provide to you some basic risk indexes. Now understand, I'm just bringing back the survey findings just so that they're associated with this chart. But when 44% of faculty are working a second job, we are struggling with innovation fatigue. And in my department, we have lost 4 faculty to retirement, or 1 went to ITS, and we have received 0 full-time replacements. When we talk about innovative fatigue, faculty are lacking the bandwidth to do things like grant writing, community outreach, in my case, AI and new program development. If I had an associate in a consulting work that I did a couple years ago that I ran into, and he said, "So how's your AI degree going?" And I said, "We don't have one yet." And he goes, "Shouldn't you have had one?" I said, "Yeah, there's a lot to do, and it changes." Systematic burnout, when faculty are working summers, they're working overloads, those continuous work cycles without those restorative breaks, lead to high recruitment costs. And when we look at what's happening here on our campus, is we are becoming a training ground for new faculty. They're coming here, they're learning their skills, they're perfecting their classes, they're perfecting the art of teaching, and then they're going elsewhere because they can make more money. Flight risk, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about being a training ground. If we look at the cost of failed searches that we're having, I will bring into play here that Mount Hood, which has the 6th best AAS cybersecurity program in the nation, they were just awarded that. They, even with their high salaries, this year alone have had 2 failed searches for cybersecurity staff and have 7 in the last 3 years failed. Recruitment failure, so that's the example there. And then of course the erosion of governance. If faculty are working other jobs just to survive, they're not engaged in the college community, they're not meeting students where they need to be met, etc. Now, finally, you have in front of you sort of some last minute data, which is what we're seeing in our department is a structure of full-time faculty not being replaced, but being replaced with part-time faculty. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of information here, being the computer nerd and the data research nerd that I am. You've got all the references there. Feel free to look this over at a later time, but it's the impact of part-time faculty on graduation rates, on retention, etc. Because part-time faculty are hired to teach. They're not hired for everything else we do. The mentoring, the congratulations, the calls to a student who said, Eric, I don't know how I'm gonna pass the Security Plus certification. And over the break, on my free time, I designed my first AI agent tutor. And with that tutor, he called me this afternoon and said he passed the exam. And as a former student here, my education started here. My goal was a 2-year degree in work. That was it. And this college changed my life. I decided if I could do 2 years while working full-time, I could do 5 years while working full-time and get my bachelor's. For some reason, I got 3 minors in the process. And then while teaching here, I earned my master's in business administration. I called it the National Guard program because I went to Portland twice a month. So that's all the information that I want to share. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's it for public comment. Lucas?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll keep working down our agenda. Next up, we have the consent agenda. So we have our regular meeting minutes in there.
I have one point of clarification in the minutes, item 8(1)B. Said Porter asked if COCC needed to raise the $4 million match before receiving the HEC grant. Clausen confirmed this. I and others may interpret raise as fundraise the $4 million, which is not an accurate representation of where that money came from. So I just suggest maybe changing that to allocate or something else. Because the money wasn't fundraised if someone were to seek raise.
Okay,
That's all.
is that the word he used? Is that why we used it?
I'm not sure, I didn't go back to the video.
Okay,
I don't recall if that's the exact word I used. My intent was to find out if we had to have the money present,
Yeah.
not necessarily fundraised.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
yes.
Move approval of minutes as amended.
All right,
Second.
thank you, Ron. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye or both.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, and any opposed, nay? Okay. Moving on, we're in the information items section. So we have our monthly budget status. Any questions for Michael?
I do. We're about $3 million short on property taxes. At this point in time, you feel comfortable with it? A fair amount of that,
I do. Yeah, I project we're gonna be way out of it.
please.
Any other questions for Michael? Okay, thank you. Moving on. We have our new hire reports. Any questions or comments for Laura Bowlby? Nope, okay, moving on. Now we're at the 2025 audit report.
Are you looking at me?
Yes, I am. That's what we planned, right?
Heather should be joining,
She's on.
oh, she's on.
here.
So, Soren, which is our CPA firm, concluded their audit. I'm happy to say that we had a clean audit, clean opinion. There was no real exceptions to it. I think it's 16 pages long. So I urge you all to read it. And if you have any questions. I'm not. And if you have any questions, let us know. One of our budget committee members has asked some really good questions about what's in this document. I want to thank Fiscal Services for all the great work that they did putting this together, and other, student affairs, academic affairs, everybody that helped us do it, because it's a heck of a lot of work. With that, Alan, do you want to make any comments as the chairperson of the Audit and Finance Committee?
No, that we met and we had a good review, and we listened to Heather quite a bit on going through the documents. And I want to thank you and your team that you put together a good working relationship with them, and it was a clean up, and that's what we like to see.
Kathleen does a great job, so thank you, Kathleen. Appreciate it. And with that, Heather McMeekin, who was with Soren, I'm still getting used to the new name.
Me too.
Welcome to the board meeting. I'll
Perfect.
let you take it from here.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. First, I apologize. I've been very sick this week, so I'm hoping I don't start coughing, but we'll make it through. So I first wanted to thank, Kathleen, the whole finance team, everyone. Doing the audit is so much work, a lot of cooperation. So I just wanted to thank the whole team for being cooperative, get us the information that we need. It is a lot of work on their end, on top of their already very large workload. So we do appreciate all of their help. As Alan mentioned, we did meet in detail to go over the full audit. It's, as Michael mentioned, 116 pages. So I'm not going to go over it in a ton of detail. I just wanted to point out a few things, and then I have some page numbers that if you guys want to go and refer and look at those sections later, those were kind of like the main points that we touched on and thought would be important to you guys, as you're going through the audit report. So first off, it's not really a page number, it's the independent auditor's report. At the very beginning, just clean audit opinion. So I think that's, the most important piece that you guys care about. And that also goes for your compliance audit, which is your single audit of your federal funds. There was also a clean opinion on that as well. If you guys want to kind of jot down these page numbers, I'm not going to go through this in a whole lot of detail, but these were kind of the main pages. If you guys are curious, kind of, big pieces for you to look at. Pages 5 through 17 is your management discussion and analysis. And I think this is the most important thing for you guys to read through, because it gives a lot of background, a lot of narrative to the numbers rather than just looking at the numbers and trying to figure out what they mean. The one thing I wanted you to keep in mind is, in your internal reports and your regular meetings, you guys look at things on the budget basis, so budget to actual. A lot of the MD&A pieces are on government-wide basis, meaning we add in, the PERS adjustments, debt, fixed assets, things like that. So it does look a little bit different. There is a section in there on, I believe, page 13 to 14, which is the general fund budget to actual, and that's got some good narrative as well. Later on at the back of that piece is some narrative that Michael does for, upcoming economic things, over the next year or two to kind of look for. Let's see, I was just going to point out one number. So on government-wide, again, not budget basis, your guys' net position increased $5.9 million. So it did go up, which is great. Again, I'm not going to go in a ton of detail. We really, really dug into these numbers. So if anyone has any questions or yeah, on any specific numbers, Kathleen or Michael, if anyone wants me to dig into anything, let me know. Um, Other pages to kind of look at, pages 18 and 19 is the full details. Just the details of what's in the MD&A. It really breaks it out. Um, Page 62 is the general fund budget to actual, which I think is useful for you guys to look at just to see what the budget looks like for the general fund. Later on in the report, we do test Oregon budget law just to make sure you guys are, doing everything you need to do, that you're under budget in all areas, you're, publishing, everything that you need to. That all looked great. We didn't have any findings this year. Pages 108 through the rest is your compliance audit. So as I mentioned, it was a clean opinion again this year on your compliance audit. Page 113 is a summary of, the programs that we tested. Any findings, there wasn't any findings, but, just kind of some required pieces that we looked at there. And then page 116 is your it's called your CFA, the Statement of Federal Expenditures, basically. So all of your federal expenditures that went out during the year. So that's the just a summary that we have of it. Yeah, I think that's pretty where I'm going to leave it. Does anyone have anything else they wanted me to go over? Any specifics or any questions after looking at the report?
We're good.
So,
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, thank you guys. It's always great working with you guys. And yeah, if anyone runs into any questions or anything, feel free to reach out at any time.
Thank you.
thank you, Heather.
Great. Thanks, you guys.
I'll be
Great.
back. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. The one budget committee member is extremely thorough. Let's put it at that. Very valuable for us to check the audit report and verify some of the questions that you have. So if you have any questions, reach out.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay, can I just echo
Yes.
thanks to the different departments, my
Yes.
team, fiscal services, as well as campus services, class and all steps to do existence testing with one of the staff accountants. Ryan Powell of Admissions and Records, Brianna Sylvester and her team financial aid, as well as HR. They all, there's a huge lift during various parts of the audit.
Yeah, I thank you to everybody who participated. This is a lot of work. Yes. Thank you, Kathleen, for mentioning. Okay, so next up on the agenda, we have a strategic plan update on student access.
Yes.
With Anne Marie Hamlin. What? We'll just bring our slideshow into vision for those on as well. As you recall, we do a periodic update for you on various goals within the strategic plan. And so tonight we're bringing you two, and I have a team of folks who are going to talk about the access goal tonight. I will introduce them so that once we get rolling, they can just move on to their next part. Cindy Lenhart is our instructional outreach dean. Will be speaking with us about this strategic scheduling project. Tony Russell, instructional dean, and Venus Nguyen, instructor in art, assistant professor in art, will be talking about the online programs. So we switched a little while back to going from giving you the data on the metrics to talking about the action projects, which I think is the really exciting part of what we do. So we're going to talk about two action projects. Go ahead and move that forward. Oh, as a reminder, we've got these 5 goals. We're talking about access. Zach will be doing community engagement very soon. To remind you of the goal, COCC expands access by providing students with equitable opportunities and the resources needed to achieve their goals. And so in terms of the metrics that we look at, we've got these 4 metrics. They, of course, are on our website. We can delve into those at another time. But if you'll move forward, we've got 2 action projects in this area. The first is strategic scheduling, which we have been working on. We are now in our 4th year of this project, and having made some really good strides that Cindy will describe. And our online programs efforts are in at least year 2, year 3, somewhere along those lines, and we've made some good strides there as well. So I will toss to Cindy to take it over from here.
Thank you, and Marie, you can go to the next slide. This is the strategic scheduling action project. And the goal was to develop a course scheduling plan that results in a student-centered year-long schedule of classes. The plan helps college make data-informed decisions. I'll show you a little data around our successes and really looking at the right balance of course delivery modes as well as times, days, and locations in which courses are offered. As Anne-Marie indicated, we're in our 4th year with this, and I want to mention a couple of people who were on the team, the sort of the leader team that did this is Krista Leaders from Anne-Marie's office, who did a lot of that back-end processing, and Jessica Giglio, who's also an instructional dean. So I can stand here for an hour and list the other people that were part of this process, but I wanted to at least acknowledge those two because this wouldn't have happened without them. So let's go to the next page and I'll give you a little bit. As we talked about, we're in the 4th year, but really the 2nd year of the implementation of our class software. So we have the summer 2026 schedule it's ready to go. It'll be out on the web for students in a matter of a few weeks. We are currently the 26-27, so if you think fall, winter, spring of this next year, a lot of that is in class in the software as well. It's working through the refinement strategies and phases as we're beginning to do that. We continue to develop more streamlined processes. That's a lot of what we're doing right now. We're trying to minimize the changes that are made, and we're trying to maximize our efficiency as we're going through there. So a couple of notable activities. One of the things that we have been working hard to do is build a robust schedule of classes at the branch campuses. That has been a challenge because we couldn't really see what was out there on the website or in Banner easily. This class software has allowed us to do that. And the other things that we've done is last fall, we really made a concerted effort to put the branch campus directors and the department chairs in the same room together to really talk about what we're offering, where the conflicts are, how we can make it more robust. I'm happy to say that we really do have a much more robust schedule of classes at the branch campus that's starting to emerge. And it's because faculty department chairs can actually see what's out there and how it's working in concert. So that's one of the really great things that have come out of this. And it's really improved the Bend campus schedule as well. So we've done a number of things like starting classes at the top of the hour, giving students time for lunch. Sodexo loves us because there's a lot of students in coats during lunchtime, and really providing students with an opportunity to build a schedule that doesn't sit on top of each other. So that's really provided some great opportunities for students. And lastly, I want to show you a little bit of data about some of the back-end things that have happened. So if you go to the next slide. So one of the challenges that we've had in the past is cancellation of classes. When we used to build classes, and 22-23 shows you the old model of building classes, it was done term by term, and there was a whole lot of, we're just going to put a bunch of stuff out there and see what happens. And then 2 weeks before the term would start, there'd be a lot of these cancellations because the classes weren't filling or those kinds of things were happening. So if you notice the green sections year after year, they're going down. That's a good thing. This is one of those graphs where a downward trend is a good thing, right? So fewer sections in 2020, or we had over 5% of cancellations in 2022, and it affected a lot of students. In 23-24, we did not have the class software. We implemented a more manual process of that, trying to build some efficiencies around what we're doing. We still didn't have some of that, but you can definitely see a decrease in the sections that we canceled and the work that we did there. And then 24-25, you can see even further, clear down to almost 2%. Just canceling very few classes. Effect to students was really difficult in 22-23. If you can imagine a student getting to 2 weeks before the term starts and classes getting canceled and then moving things around. You can see in 24-25, we really tried to minimize class cancellations and how they were done. So we still have work to do. We're still working on refinements. We've got some processes in place. I think those are going really well to try to address some of the concerns that departments have and some of the concerns that we have on the deans. But overall, I think this has been a successful action project. And I'm happy to answer any questions before I pass it on to Tony.
One question that we had talked about, I think maybe a year or two ago, was the idea of coordinating this with, like on the branch campuses with the high schools, because there are a lot of, the bell schedules didn't align. Is that something that we've been able to work on?
I wouldn't say we're at a perfect point with that, but we do in Prineville have some high school classes, particularly Grizzly Mountain Home Link, who actually take courses on campus. So there's been some effort to work toward that. The challenges, of course, is that the high schools do their projections out for theirs, like now, they put it out, put students in it. Ours doesn't really come out until April and May. So there's a little bit of a challenge with timing, block scheduling, those kinds of things. But
Oh, okay, well, one of the issues that we had was like when classes start.
yeah, that's true.
Like, if you're gonna come to the campus and take a class that starts at 2 o'clock, but that's gonna cause you to miss 2 other classes at the high school, right? Because the bell schedule isn't the same.
Right. I don't think we've had enough years yet of it starting at the top of the hour, because this is really the first year that classes have started at the top of the hour. But I think we can continue to work on that. Yeah,
That's the biggest complaint I get.
I know, I know. So,
If you look at the blue, I guess my question is, when you talk about seats, you're talking about the student in the seat.
Right.
How many students are we affecting in 24-25 in the blue side? Is it 10 students or is it 100 students? Do you have an idea?
I don't have to go back to the data and look. It's not hundreds. We're talking in the 10s to 20s at this point, very few students and seats taken. And many of those were classes that we had to cancel because we lost a part-time faculty member or there were 0 students in it. Although that doesn't count with the seats taken, but I can get that data for you.
If it's under 20, then that's what it is.
Yeah, it's a much smaller number.
In the number of sections, same thing, is it 3 or 4 sections or is it one set of sections?
I'm gonna go back and look at those numbers and I'll send those to Kyle and he can send them out, the numbers behind this data.
Okay. I guess the question is, are we chasing the answer with a wall? With the amount of time and effort that we're putting into this? Is it, are we getting a return on investment? Not so much return on investment. I guess the question is, the amount of time that your staff is putting into it, the school's putting into it, strategic, CIS and everything else. Is it, if it's 10 students, I'm glad it'll help them. But are we getting?
Well, this is
They're
one
about-
small piece of data
Okay.
in a larger, so if I can speak beyond this data, 100% more efficiencies across the board. And our enrollments, especially in our branch campuses, have been a result of the scheduling have gone up because students can predict schedules. This was a real concern, particularly back in 22-23, and particularly with faculty and students, because we were doing it at the last minute because our schedule wasn't well coordinated. Right, and so, is this the end all be all? No, but it's a small piece of a success metric in seeing that we are able to reduce those cancellations because we're not putting a large number of classes out there and then just canceling them because we don't have enrollments.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Joe, I think it's really important because what we heard back then was that students would have to postpone graduation because classes were canceled and they couldn't get it in.
Or they would wait until 2 weeks before the term started because they knew that's when cancellations happen. And so they wouldn't register. And so we had this huge spike in enrollments because they would wait until they do that. It was particularly difficult for faculty because we'd ask faculty to prepare for a class. And then it would get canceled because of enrollment numbers and those kinds of things.
It's affecting more different students too.
It is, absolutely, yeah, yeah. Okay, we'll hand it off online.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so scheduling is a huge part of building a successful online program. It is a significant investment to build one well and then make it sustainable. And scheduling is a huge part of that. You want to make sure that you have a reliable schedule. It's the biggest thing for an online student is that I've got to know that that's going to be there and I'm going to be able to do it, because most folks are working when they're doing that, or they have just a few credits to finish up. And so they want to know that they have something that's reliable. And then we want to make sure that we're able to sustain that program. So a lot of what we have worked on is identifying the kinds of infrastructure that we need, and then the kind of policies that we need to make sure that we have a successful program. The other thing is to discuss what kind of pilots we can run under the current financial constraints that we have. So next slide, Lucas. Thank you. All right, so we've done a number of different kinds of strategic needs assessments, from what we currently have on the ground now to what other successful programs have. And we found that when we have consulted with other colleges that have online programs, they've been very generous with their time and telling us, hey, these are the things that we did that we wouldn't do, so make sure that you don't do those things. And that's been great. In order to support this kind of program, there are some things that are kind of normal that we need. One is that a lot of times our faculty, subject matter experts, they know their subject, they know what they want to teach and how they want to teach it. They are not as capable as Eric. I know because I've worked with Eric. But a lot of folks need extra support in, like, how do I do that thing that I want to do? And that's why we have instructional designers. We need a lot more in order to be able to support faculty to do that. And it's common in other online programs to have several of those people on staff. And so we have looked at what our capacity is versus what capacity is at other schools that run successful programs. We have to set policies on course quality. Obviously, we have certain federal guidelines that we have to abide by. Some of that has to do with digital accessibility. So I called out e-learning there, but I have to say also faculty members have been involved in these processes. And then also our student accessibility services staff have been involved in helping us to understand all the various part of this. And then obviously our students need a different layer of support. They're not going to register the same way that other students register. And we have to find, well, how do we designate someone who's just taking a couple of classes, and how do we designate someone who is only taking online classes? And do they get some kind of priority when they do that? How do they get advised? Do we want to bring them on campus? I mean, I think the answer is no. We probably don't want to make them come to campus for certain things. And so we have to build those frameworks because they don't currently exist in a large enough form for us to be able to do that. Next slide, Lucas. Yes.
Thanks. So as we move forward with some limited implementation and launch of what we can do currently, we're looking at like faculty and staff training protocols that's a little more uniform for students as they're taking these classes in various areas. So they'll have some like uniformity there, of course, which a lot of courses are going to require some kind of proctoring, test proctoring, which we are testing in some areas, and accessibility support for the builds of those specific courses. We are looking at building exemplar courses, and that would be kind of a template. So students would kind of know how to navigate through an online course. They're having a homepage, going to modules, things are due at a specific time, and that would look fairly similar, at least at this point, among, let's say, if they're in business, the business classes would look similar. And then pilot degree programs, we're looking at finding a few courses just to start out with and see how that's working. We have some guidelines that we've put around that and some faculty that are willing to do that work.
And that's an eye toward, like, how would we eventually market this? Would we want to say, you know, like, for example, business degree, is that the path forward? When equally, we have a lot of students, as I mentioned earlier, who are just coming to finish up credits, that's marketable too. You just say, hey, you have 20 credits, come and finish them here. We have a lot of students who are already doing that. But again, when we market this out to the community, we want to have all these supports there, because we want the students to feel that they're supported, that they are getting a return on their investment as well. So any questions for Munis?
Maybe for either of them, do we have a, this is something that I don't know if we have, at the college generally. And so, you know, I don't know if the policy would be the same for this. Do we have a minimum number of credits you have to take here in order to get your degree from here? So would it be the same? What is that?
For this degrees, it's 90 credits.
No, she means to get a degree, yeah, to establish, like 15, I think it is.
Yeah, it's 24.
I mean, if like you started somewhere else and you come
Yeah.
here and you want to finish up.
Yeah, it's low, it's like a term,
It's like a term.
a little more than a term.
And so we would have sort of this, probably the same thing for the online, I would
Yeah.
think.
And there's also a lot of work that we've been doing with getting credit for previous credits earned, or getting credit for previous experiences that have been developing just the last couple of years. And so that's another big part of this, because that is also marketable. I don't want to learn that, like, when I go back to school, that all this experience that I've gained in my industry isn't going to be worth anything to me, or if I've taken some credits recently, that I'm not going to get credit for those things. So those are also an important part of the package.
So is it correct that we do not have a degree currently that's fully attainable online?
Not officially.
People can piecemeal?
You can
kind of?
definitely piecemeal some things together.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And that's what we're striving toward.
You can do the AAP, you can do business, but we can't. I don't think in good conscience say you can do it online, because we have no way to reserve classes for online students. So you start the journey and then you go to jump into that math class, and it's already full, because maybe a student in the dorm's like, it's better with my late night schedule, so.
It goes back to that scheduling thing, right?
Yeah.
So you gotta have a way to designate, oh, this is only for this group. And if we're gonna run a business degree, we can't just run the one required math class. We gotta run that several times, because they might have come in the middle of spring term. And they need to be able, at whatever point in the cycle, to be able to take that, which you need scheduling software for. So it's a good thing Cindy and her team have done such a good job. Other questions?
So applied learning, do we give people credit for applied learning, and how do we do that?
Yeah, it depends. I'm not the best person to talk about it. Maybe Cindy knows better.
Need credit for prior.
Yeah, or on the job,
Training.
you learn a skill and here you want credit for it.
There's a number of ways you can get credit for prior learning. So if someone has a certificate from a police academy or computer science or something, they bring that, we have a crosswalk, we award certain credits for that. Advanced placement, we award certain credits for advanced placement or the IB schools. We do some challenge of courses, and we've adjusted some of our policy to that to make it more accessible to students. So if a student comes in and says, I've done this kind of work for a long time, I was a teacher in the high schools or whatever, and I need a speech 111 class, they could challenge that class, and it's left up to the faculty and the department to determine that. There's a number of ways we have clearly established that a student can get credit for prior learning experience.
Right,
Well, military, sorry,
very common,
and military is the other common one. I knew there was one. missing.
different process, but very common.
Yeah, and they would be able to do that in online programming.
Can I ask you another question? And you guys can ditch this to Greg if you want, but
Sure.
when I remember when we were interviewing Greg, we were talking to him about balancing, you know, online with on campus, because we understood that online classes, people expect to pay less for them, but they actually, in fact, were costing us more to offer them. And Greg said that that was not his experience at the campus that he came from. And so I'm curious, as you're looking at this now, are you thinking that we can get to the point where it, it doesn't cost us more to do the online classes? And again, if you want to dump it on him, you can.
It just depends on how you set the thing up and how you in folks, like, it really depends on how it's set up and how it's being funded. So if you were to look at maybe schools that are very close to us that have I don't know what you call it, something like an e-campus, like it's a lot more expensive to do that online degree. But you're paying for the apparatus that is around that. That's just how they structured how to pay for it. And so you can go face to face and pay a certain tuition, but you're paying 3 times that to do it online. We don't currently have anything structured like that. In fact, we're not even charging anything extra to take online courses presently. But it depends on how you pay for the program and whether or not you want to charge more for the.
I wasn't talking about charging, I was talking about what it costs us to offer a class.
The answer is it still costs more because it's not set up as effectively as it could be. Part of this is the collective bargaining work we're doing. Yeah, collective bargaining, which we have to figure out on the faculty side. Right now, we're paying stipends for all levels of course development within the online space. And then we also have issues of who retains ownership of that course once it's established. So the only effective way to do this is that exemplar model they were saying, but you create a master course, for lack of a better term, or a really, really good one. And then it leaves enough leeway that each faculty member who teaches it can tweak it to what they want it to be, but they're not going through full course development each and every time. And we're not paying stipends each and every time it's taught. So the way we're doing it now is very ineffective and inefficient if we want to grow this in a sustainable way. It needs wholesale change.
So we're moving toward that, but it'll take.
We need to move towards that, but it's a conversation working with faculty about how can we assess that part of it. We will at some point need the developers, the content experts and program developers to assist in that. So it really is one of those things that it will be a page turning. There are big things that will go into this, and there's a cost up front, but it will be the least expensive method of education we provide once it's built.
But first, we're gonna have to pay to build it.
Yep, probably.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we have another strategic plan update regarding community engagement. What's that?
You have to pay for it first until you can drive them. We're gonna talk about the Mattress campus expansion. And this will be the last report on this action item. Lucas is, it's when you can see what up here is going on, it's like driving. Texting at the same time, if they don't recommend. Thanks you all for having me. So just a reminder, as Anne Marie just did, again, we talk about our goals for the strategic plan. Community engagement is one of our goals of 5. And again, COCC engages with response to the needs of the communities we serve, which are vast and cover our large service district. 2 of the indicators of community engagement are college-sponsored events and participation with key stakeholder groups. You've heard me report on those before. And then we have these community engagement action projects. As we drill down, we're going to talk about the one today, which is the Mattress campus expansion. And I just want to revisit again, before I go to the bullets on that slide, that this expansion was providing increased classroom programs, really intended to meet the demand for healthcare training, childcare, and student services in this region. We wanted these programs to be workforce aligned. We wanted to provide critical support services closer to where students live and work. And if you've seen any of the projection for growth in Jefferson County in the next 10, 20, and 30 years, you know that that's very much growing part in Central Oregon. As Deschutes County, even outpacing it into the future. So this is going to be again the last report on this as the building is now open. Hooray. I don't want to forget to leave out the many people who've worked on this from the strategic plan action item in the past. So that was me and Anne Marie, especially in the outset. Sophia Straneri has been our campaign coordinator, doing a lot of the fundraising and community outreach. Sean Tevlin is our grants director, as you know. Much of the funding that came from this project came from private foundations, which only give through the foundation, not to the college writ large. So Sean was a huge part of that. I like to joke that Sean's actually raised money for this project, or at least had his hands on that. Amy Howell, Julie Downing, Carmen Ingoli, and Shannon Waller, really our team leads and experts in designing the space to meet our healthcare and childcare needs from a curriculum standpoint. We couldn't do it without Josh Clausen, our project manager. Darren from IT has been in the conversation since day one, making sure that the IT setup, which is formidable in this building, has been what we needed. And then, of course, Ryan Dixon works with campus services, and James Rodriguez is our campus director at Madras. So all had a hit this set forth by Jeremy Green. So again, these are the bullets I want to cover. Our building open to students in January. The Child Care Center opens, I believe, on Monday. There was a little bit of permitting and supply delay, but that looked great. We got to tour it at our sneak peek, which was held on January 30th. We had over 70 faculty and staff go through the building, and we created a fun little scavenger hunt, if you will, for folks to go around. Sarah was there, I know, and a lot of faculty came out as well. It was super cool to see. And you keep hearing about the tiny toilets. I hate to beat this they're the cutest things ever. I don't remember tiny toilets when my kids were in childcare. Maybe they had them. It's the cutest to remember. So it's really fun to see that space and even go into the early childhood ed room that has the two-way mirror, and knowing that our students will be observing the lessons that are going on and getting real time learning. And then the labs are amazing. So it's just it's a phenomenal building. I would like to remind you, we're going to have our community ribbon cutting, grand opening, cake, balloons, et cetera, on April 30th. We will send out formal invites to all of the board and anyone listening in right now to that event. We would hope to have everyone in the community. There'll be funders there, there'll be tours, et cetera. There'll be the full unveiling of the brick garden as well as the public art that's going to be installed here in the next month.
Do we know what time?
It'll be, Lucas, do we have a time? I'm gonna say.
I believe it's.
Yeah, let's say hold 3 to 6, and we're gonna hone in on that exact time as we get a little. So we don't want it to be too late in the day, but we're gonna partner with the chamber and probably EDCO in Jefferson County, so a little bit of that after work affair certainly drives attendance. 4 to 6. 4 to 6, thanks Kathleen. It's on the count already. Maybe subject to change a tiny bit, but I'm guessing that's gonna be what it is, partnering with a lot of folks up there. So again, I don't have Angie here, who's been tracking amazingly the fundraising and the project budget, but I went into her report just the other day to get this number. So this is the total external fundraising to date. This involves the capital campaign that ran to the foundation, our public sources, and the lottery bond, 9.7 million, which was pretty good when you think about the available dollars out there for projects like this. And I like to celebrate those wins. It was an expensive project, there's no doubt about that, but it's really exciting to think about this building meeting childcare and workforce in Jefferson County for generations. Joe, I think you can speak to that, the community support we've seen up there and everyone's excitement around the project. It's been pretty cool. So happy to take any questions, but again, this is sort of the tie the ribbon on this this action project for the Madras campaign. And thanks to all of you who bought bricks in this room, and I know we've been talking about it for several years. You're probably ready for me to not be presenting on this. But I will tell you, it's the coolest project I've ever had. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, so we'll move along to new business. We have support for participation in CTE month. We have Lucas.
Yeah, so Anne Marie's actually going to talk about this since it's in her area. I'm happy to talk about the marketing or the business or the resolution, but I'll let Anne Marie speak to CTE first. Okay.
So I want to start by wishing you a very happy National Career and Technical Education Month.
Yay!
Nationally designated as CTE month. And so we are extra excited to celebrate a variety of things related to CTE month here at COCC. As you know, we have many wonderful CTE programs. We've got many fabulous CTE faculty, 2 of whom are here tonight, who work with these students to gain the skills that they need for the workforce that we need in Central Oregon and beyond. Many of our students will leave Central Oregon with these skills and we get to see them go. But one part of our mission is to serve the community and their economic and industrial needs. And so CTE programs are one of the ways that we do that. So just to call out a few things, you probably know CTE education is about hands-on learning, skill development, meeting industry needs. And so our programs are well informed by industry. Not only are our faculty connected to people in the industry, they meet regularly with advisory boards who provide feedback on our programs. How do they look? What are we doing? Are we doing the right things? Where do we need to go in the next few years? Because things are changing, for example, in use of AI throughout many of our industries. So those are important things to know. We, of course, many of the programs we have. I'm just going to name a few: construction trades, manufacturing, aviation, culinary, forestry, natural resources, public safety. If you are watching our social media, which Lucas can tell you more about in a minute, you are seeing some celebratory posts on our various CTE programs. Is it next week? Our culinary faculty will be going to Salem to be one representative of all of our CTE programs. I believe they will be serving cookies and coffee. So I'm imagining that will be a popular table. Come and see. But we can't send everybody. So each year we send a different group to represent us. All right. And then just finally, I want to say that this month is such a great opportunity to do something that we really want to do all year long, but let's just call special attention to highlighting student success. Looking at the many employer partnerships that we have, we truly value those partnerships within Central Oregon and what they bring to the education that we can provide. Our faculty and staff who make these programs possible, they bring their expertise to their roles. And then COCC as a partner, a key workforce and economic development partner in Central Oregon. So we think these programs are well worth celebrating 12 months of the year. And this month we get to call special attention to them. Would you like to add anything?
The only thing I'd like to add is just from a marketing perspective, it being CTE month, we're really trying to push above and beyond, and just kind of get the word out about our CTE program. So doing a lot of things on social to push that out. We've got sponsored content, being in the newspapers. We've got press releases, as Anne Marie mentioned, we've been working with the deans and the culinary program, and Brian Kerr, the program director. So Brian and his student and myself will be in Salem at the Capitol on next Wednesday. They're gonna have some pastries and coffee. We'll be the only one with food, so we will be a popular booth for sure. The Capitol's undergoing a construction project, so they're whittling it down a little bit, but we're one of only 11 colleges that'll be there. So that'll be pretty fun as well. So lots of things going on for sure. And certainly we're always pushing CTE programs throughout the year, as Anne Marie said, but it's an extra month, or it's a special month to give them a little bit of extra focus.
So you have in your board packet a resolution to consider for this evening.
So this will be CTE month, but I know it's also other celebrations are happening this month.
Black History Month, for
Yes.
example, absolutely.
Yes.
We've got some great programming on that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I know there can be, there's only 12 months in a year, so there's. Yes.
Each month is special in many ways.
Yes, yes. So we recognize how special it is in many ways.
Yes.
Okay, so there is a motion.
I'll be back to present that. Be it resolved that the Central Oregon Community College Board of Directors declares February as Career Technical Education Month, recognizing the value and impact of CTE programs in supporting student success, workforce development, and economic vitality. And be it further resolved that the board encourages the COCC community and regional partners to recognize and celebrate career technical education and the students, faculty, staff, and employers who contribute to its success.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
You did.
thank you. And none opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. Let's move on. We're now in the Board of Directors Operations section. So we have recommended changes to BEP 7, Communication and Counsel to the Board, second reading. Where would you like to?
Sure. So this, and you guys may recall that we brought the revisions to the board forward at the last meeting for a first read. But we also had a couple little cleanup things. And so that's why there are two red lines so that you can easily see. They will be obviously consolidated into one final version. But the changes are pretty minimal in the second one. So if you look at the first one and you were good with it, the second one is just a couple of minor additions. So I would propose that we have a second read for this today. And since we adopt with the second read, I believe that we do need a motion and a second and a vote. And I want to thank Erin for her eagle eyes in reading them. She spots the inconsistencies pretty quickly, and we're better for it.
Excellent.
Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve board BEP 7 communication and council to the board policy statement as presented.
Thank you, Ellen.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
Good job.
Yeah, thank you, Greg and Erica, for doing the first draft.
I think Greg did. What's
It was team.
We talked
It
about
was
it,
team.
yes.
Just take it, just take it.
All those in favor, please say aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, none opposed. Move on. And then we'll skip to 3, board member activities. Anybody, Alan, would you?
We'll start,
first,
sure.
please?
Well, I don't really have anything to report, but last Saturday was the Redmond Crab Crack. It's a thing they put on all the crab you can eat, and it's great. But John Stark from Medco pulled me over and said, I'm so excited to be working with President Greg. I really enjoy having him there. He knows workforce. You did a great hire. And I said, I know we did, and his kids are young, and they're gonna stay here till they graduate and be here as long as you are, John. So, thank you. Good compliment to you.
Joe.
I just had the January 30th, I had the sneak look at the campus event up in Madras. It's a beautiful facility, complements our facilities well over 10 years old. You can't tell the difference between either one of them is older than the other one. The staff did a great job putting in the presentation. We have made the ceremony with the board for the 12:30. Good job, Dennis.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joe. Erin?
Can't wait to see it. On Tuesday, January 20th, I attended the student event with Cleve Jones, which is a part of this the season of nonviolence. On Friday, January 23rd, I had an advocacy committee meeting. On Tuesday, January 29th, I attended the OCCA Lunch and Learn advocacy for the 2026 legislative session. On Friday, February 6th, I attended the OCCA board meeting, and earlier today I emailed board approved legislative session bill positions to the board. So you have that in your inbox. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Jim?
I will email mine in. It'll be easier that way.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Laura?
So on the 15th of January, I had a couple calls with the city of Redmond and one call with Michael. And then on the 29th of January, I had a call with Michael and Pete Christoph, who's outside counsel with us for when we have a conflict with Mark and Paul's, yes, firm. And then on the 9th of February, I had correspondence with and a call with Pete Christoph, but then correspondence with Pete and Michael. And Michael, I think that we should probably just report. I mean, it's going to come back to the board, but we didn't discuss after the last meeting.
We did not. I have a resolution put together for the approval of that contract, but because we're still going back and forth with the city.
Right, I know we're not ready to, but I thought we ought to give a report that we have we have an agreement in fundamental terms, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
should we do it now, or is there a reason?
Well,
We're still negotiating.
I don't think there's any reason not to just say that in general terms, we think we have an agreement with the city of Redmond that will make both parties happy and will be able to facilitate the work that the city of Redmond is diligently pursuing so that we can have an airport that continues to grow with the community, but that, you know, does give the college some return on the land, obviously, and the parties are gonna work together real well, I think. And we should have a draft or contract to be considered at the next meeting, but I think it's gonna be, I think it's very reasonable, and I think it's within the parameters of what the real estate committee was thinking was.
And board direction, yeah.
Yeah, what we, yeah. So. Sorry,
Thank you, Laura.
that's all I have, thanks.
Okay, Kyle. I have back to December because I missed the last meeting, but most of them is conversations with Greg and Jim. So I've got 12/12, 12/19, 1/7, and you were on that one, Kyle. 1/9, 1/16, 1/23. Then I have an advocacy meeting on the 23rd, so 1/23. And then Greg and Jim again on 1/30 and 2/6. So. Good communication. Way to go, team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So now we're at the president's report.
Well, there's a lot going on, and that's never a bad thing, unless it is, but in this case, it's probably not. I sent out some updates on short session, and thank you, Aaron, for the OCCA advocacy as part of that. There's a number of bills that they anticipate going through. A lot of them I would sort of anticipate as cleanup. The one thing that really would bring change would be the mandate to have a student as part of the board. There has been an amendment to that that has just now recently come out through OCCA's advocacy, which states that individual governing boards would have the right to dictate their own executive session policies and how that relates to whether or not that student attends. One of the big concerns that came out is if you were to be reprimanding an employee or looking into a serious investigation, would it be an appropriate thing to have a student in the room? And that was a concern that OCCA had brought forward. And that has been accepted and amended as part of the bill. And they believe that will pass. So we should probably start thinking about what that will mean necessarily for us. And
What I saw, it looked like a non-voting.
correct, it's non-voting, ceremonial, although there is a provision in there that says allowed to do a ceremonial vote for things that are relevant, but it doesn't define what that means. There's also a piece where they amended, you know, that an individual governing board can establish rules on executive session, but there's still a provision that says all materials sent to the board must be sent to the student representative. And I raised issue with that. And they were like, well, that's not what they mean. We talked to them. I'm like, it's not the elected official.
That's what it said. I know what advice I keep.
Right, so they were like, we'll take that back, but we do want to keep tabs on that because that was the one thing that I raised as I don't think that's necessarily.
Stay on top of that, city managers very much tenure on city council and mayor. We had a ceremonial high school student be able to be on the council.
Yeah.
We had 3 years, it was great, and then we had 1 year, it was a nightmare.
Right.
It was just tough.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a limited, it wasn't very much tenure, but it can be a nightmare.
I would imagine. My understanding is that OCCA in the past has opposed, and this time around they thought that opposition would not be successful. And so they switched from opposing it to asking for amendments that they thought would make it palatable, but
And I remember, I mean, we had some mixed feelings on it, but I remember when we discussed it last time, one of our big concerns was having a voting member because
yes.
then we have all of our board members who are elected based on population.
Yes.
And you get a student who's now representing not an area, and so that was, but
Also would
anyway.
have created an equal number, so that would have been a
Yeah, if there were a 4-4 vote.
yeah, there would have been quite a few. So it sounds like the big things have been tackled, but I share the it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. So that's one again, we're still looking at. Unrelated, I had the privilege of going to the Toni Morrison screening and discussion we did yesterday that Marcus LeGrand really helped to put on, and Stephanie Andre did a great job facilitating the conversation. It was outstanding. So one of the many Black History Month events we're doing this year that really I can't say enough good about it. It was a wonderful evening. In addition to the Madras grand opening, and thank you again for everyone that worked on that and for our board members that could be there. That was very special and great to take part in. Also had our privilege earlier in the day to go with James Rodriguez to the Warm Springs tribe. And so we got to do a tour and meet with some leaders on the Warm Springs reservation. And that was a great experience as well. They're so appreciative of what we are doing on the reservation. And certainly Cindy and team have done a great job, Anne Marie, of really expanding what we do there. But very cool to make those inroads and ensure that we are listening to those leaders in our community and making sure we meet the needs that they have. And then last, I just want to give a shout out on our learning communities that we have running at the college. So Andrea Waddell and Sarah Henson, who's in the room, have done a phenomenal job establishing the learning communities. Yes, you too, you've been a part of it. But for those who are not familiar, they've done incredible work on getting students engaged after hours, additional hours, there's a psychology club that meets. I had the privilege last week of attending a panel presentation on psychedelic assisted therapy, talking about all of the breakthroughs that are taking place in PTSD and anorexia and unique treatments. And to be sitting in that room on such a cutting edge topic and hearing how phenomenal the students' questions were, it's special. I mean, these things don't happen at any other community college across the country. So certainly a point of pride, and I want to give a big shout out because I know that's a lot of work that our faculty take on to do that, but it's pretty awesome. So if you're ever up near Modoc on a Friday, stop in and see if you can check it out. That's it for me.
Want to talk about Data Week?
Data Week, thank you, Kyle. How can we leave that out? We are currently at COCC's Data Week, where we're doing multiple activities to celebrate good and healthy relationships with data. We're trying to do some training components about how we handle data, how we interpret it. We have a number of activities that are taking place this week around it. We also have some prizes and giveaways for individuals taking part in it. So thank you to everyone who has worked on Data Week. That's been very exciting as well. And that's a great catch. Thank
Do
you.
not forget the best quote that I ever heard about data,
Ooh.
which was from Alicia. The plural of, what is it? The plural of.
Data is not anecdote.
That
Beg to disagree now.
No, it's not data. Yeah.
Repeat that again?
The plural of data is not anecdote.
And
Yeah.
No, the plural of anecdote is not data. Yeah.
I think it works either way.
I'm gonna have to meditate on that.
Yeah.
That's-
If you have two stories, doesn't mean you've got data supporting your point. Right.
Okay, well, not
Surely
statistically
facts.
significant data supporting your point. Yes, yes. Okay, so we have several dates in our packet. So February 12th, we have a policy meeting. February 18th is Black History Month Community Forum up in Madras. February 19th, COCC Manufacturing and Trades Fair in Redmond. February 20th, Advocacy Committee meeting. February 20th is also Black History Month ritual dinner ceremony at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. February 24th, Season of Nonviolence author. I want to pronounce it correctly. Does anybody?
Really close.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. That's at Caldera. February 28th is our Board of Directors retreat. February 28th is also the High Desert Wind Quintet and the Barber Library. It's also the Black History Month celebration dinner, which will be taking place after our retreat. So if you haven't signed up for that, it's a great celebration. March 3rd is Season of Nonviolence dance performance. March 11th is Board of Directors meeting again. So we made it through a whole month. Any questions or comments before we move to opening executive session?
I'll just remind everyone that all the Black History Month and Season of Nonviolence events are free to attend, but they are asking.
Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to read the executive session. So COCC Board of Directors will now meet in executive session for the purpose of ORS 192.60, Section 2, subsection D, labor negotiations. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on any of the deliberations during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session as previously announced. At the end of the executive session, we will, are we going to open back to open session, or will we just end
I
the
don't think
meeting?
we-
Only if you're gonna vote. Yeah.
No, I don't.
We will not be voting, so we will just adjourn the meeting. So with that, I'm gonna adjourn to executive session. Thank you, everybody.
That vision.